Away from the tabernacle I fled, away from this discrimination. Alone in this world, solitude was my only friend. Uncle Jeremiah, a rainbow in this black horizon, my only hope, lived in the skyline. Beside my shadow, a light dubbed Renee kept me company. On this journey that we'd travel, I hoped to find myself, my true self. In Galveston we existed, on the run we lived. The Lord, they screeched from their homely pews, will never allow a man of your sin into the gates of heaven. I tried not to hate it. I tried to be like them. I tried to be normal. I really did try. I pretended from the start. A boy and a boy, how sinful can you get? From my first steps, from my first words, I was different.
When Uncle Jeremiah was gone like the others, I knew something would have to change as well. 2 years I said nothing, did nothing. I told him I was gay, and now I'm alone, alone in mind. My father sat me down to speak. He said, "Son, I have suspected you of this." He couldn't say the word. He went on saying something I never expected to hear. "I saved about $800. Take it and leave. There's a girl, Renee. You two are to leave by the stroke of midnight tomorrow." With his voice still echoing around the room, he left. And there, where his folded hands had been, was a roll of dollars. As our footprints were left in the dust of Galveston, we heard the cries of the kind we have now become.
"Hey y'all, going up to Dallas? We heading up that way too."
Renee and I hitchhiked to Dallas with the teenage runaways. Then we moved from east to west, south to north through the rain and shine. We never stopped for more than a couple of days.
For 17 years we were dirt poor. We did what we could find, we ate what we could. Skin and bones. Each place brought a new sense of perspective. And by the end of 1919, you wouldn't have recognized me. I was more tan than before, I was thinner than before. I had scruff along my chin and cheeks. Renee, my, how she had changed as well. We talked for hours about the people we met, about the places we had seen, and the adventures we had had. But we never talked about Galveston. Not since that first night when we trekked out of there. The city waving goodbye to us. But our journey together ended when we got to St. Louis. While seated in a cafe, we heard, "There's a protest being led by Colette Johnson." "Who's that?" a man who ordered an espresso questioned the speaker. The speaker was a woman wearing a deep green dress, with long, straight brown hair, obviously a progressive woman. A woman who was going to change this man-ran world. She spoke with a strength and confidence in her voice that I had never heard. I turned my body to see her full length, and I was amazed.
Amazed by the femininity before my eyes, she turned to me and smiled. I smiled back until I heard the stool beside me slide across the wooden floor. I slid my eyes to the side and watched Renee stand up. She stood and took one step, then another, and another until she was standing beside the woman. The woman's voice broke me from the spell I was under. "At 3 this afternoon, the town square will be filled with rebels." With her words, the woman stepped to the door and opened it. "And I'm Colette Johnson." She stepped out of the door, leaving Renee standing in the middle of the room with a glazed look in her eyes and smiled. I walked over to her and grabbed her arm. Renee shook herself out of her daze. I led us out of the cafe, dragging Renee with me. At 3 we were in the square, only by Renee's stubbornness and my curiosity. "Thank you for coming. Today we take a stand against the oppression we have suffered from for centuries. Today we protest for the ones who will not live to see our freedom, our political freedom." The woman from the cafe stood from the steps. She spoke with a sense of wisdom and determination.
"My name is Cosette Johnson." There was a loud cheer from the large crowd of women that had formed since noon. I remember everything, all the sights, the shouts, the sounds, all the cheers and the arguments. When Cosette was finished speaking, her voice was hoarse from the emotion, her face was free of makeup, and her hair was in disarray. I was in awe. We were the last two standing in the square, in the middle of the night, in the silence. "Would you like to join me?" We jumped in the air when we heard her. We turned expecting the woman from the cafe. Indeed, we saw the same woman, but with the look that could make most men shiver from fear. Renee smiled and nodded. I stood there impassive to her, shivering with loneliness and excitement inside. "Great," Cosette smiled. "We are leaving in about 5 minutes." The two women walked away, Renee's long hair shining in the moonlight, and Cosette bouncing in time with her step.
I watched them walk away, until there was nothing left of them but the dust their feet stirred up. When I knew Renee would not be coming back, I stepped back. Once, twice, 3 times. Then I turned and ran to the station. I was there before the doors had reopened. Renee's train must have left already. Good. I sat by the door until the train conductor arrived. Waiting for the 6 o'clock? I nodded. Where are you going? I could only shrug my shoulders. Stand up, boy. Follow me. I stood and I followed, like the boy I was in his eyes. When we reached the office of the train station, he motioned for me to sit down across from him. So I sat. We stared for a few moments, him with a curious gaze, me with an odd gaze.
My name is Norman, he said with a small smile. I smiled shyly and replied, I'm Patrick. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know who I am. Norman smiled with a knowing look in his eyes. To know where you must go, you must first find where you are. I looked at him with confusion. You will miss your train if you don't get out of my office soon, he said with a smile. And like the boy I was in his eyes, I stood and left the office. I walked to the platform, and sure enough, the train was about to leave. I hopped on and found a place in the car to sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about the connection I had with Norman. It was as if we were supposed to be friends, as if we had made marks on each other's lives. The train stopped in Las Vegas in January of 1920. Having nowhere else to go, I stayed with the train.